Canadian high-yield income investors are blessed. The Canadian covered call ETF landscape offers a wide variety of stable NAV and stable distribution options, perfect for filling that core-based ETF basket of our income portfolio. But until recently, American investors have not been so lucky. Although the US landscape has plenty of flashy yield-juicing plays, the pickings have been slim for American investors looking to fill their critical stable core base baskets. That's changing. A new wave of US ETFs is emerging to fill their core base basket. While the landscape is not as mature as in Canada, the growth is promising. My American channel subscribers keep asking me, Perry, if you were an American, what US covered call ETFs would you put in your core basket? In this video, I'll show you what US ETFs I would consider adding into my portfolio core base basket if I were an American, and also point out some of the gaps still missing in the US landscape. So, join me and we will tackle this burning topic. Hello there, my name's Perry, and welcome again to the Pieverse. If you're new to my channel, then I welcome you especially to my whole channel because it's all about high yield income investing, about using covered call strategies, and in order to provide a long sustainable portfolio that generates income for your entire fire or retire portion of your life. Anyways, this topic is going to be really good. I think so. It's going to be of bigger interest for American investors because they're the ones that are keeping on, you guys are the ones that are keeping on asking me this question over and over. And I've given you answers in more of a roundabout way. I've done videos in a collaboration with other of my influencers that have given me some ideas. I've tried to create some small lists, but this one is really, I really put the nose to the grindstone, and I tried to come up with a better, more significant list and really tackle this topic a lot more. But before we get started, I just wanted to get rid of this disclaimer that it's important. I am not a certified investment tax expert. I am just a retail investor sharing my journey of my experiences along the way. The content and opinions expressed in this video are for education and entertainment only. Do your own research and consider expert advice before making any investment decisions. All right, with that under the way, I want to first talk about something that we talked about. Now, if you are new to this channel, and this is the first video you've actually watched from me, you will not be aware of this. For my subscribers that follow me, you'll be aware of this video. I'm showing this one video. It's the title video from what I created about 5 days ago. I'm thinking it was 5 days ago. It really initiated the topic about in a portfolio, distribution and diversification of your ETFs is critical. That you should actually have three, I'll call them baskets or buckets or categories of ETFs in your portfolio in order for your portfolio to be a healthy, sustainable portfolio going, to take you a long way through your life. And those were, when I talked about it, I'm going to leave the video up here as we're talking. This is the name of the title of the video. This is what it looks like, but I'm going to put it up here for you guys to click on. If you haven't seen it, I would advise you do take a look at it. It talks in detail about these three baskets. The three baskets are the core base, the yield base, and the yield juicers. And the reason I'm talking about it now is because the one basket that we're really going to focus on today is the one that is really giving a lot of American investors some challenges because the landscape in the US covered call ETF market is actually pretty sparse when it comes to the variety of core base covered call ETFs for Americans to put into their income portfolio. It's very lucrative and very mature in the Canadian market, and we're going to talk about that today. So I had a lot of questions from Americans asking me over the several weeks, months, saying, Perry, if you were an American, what would you buy as an American? What would you buy as an American cover call ETF to fill that base, that core base basket? Again, I'm only giving you my advice of things that I've seen, and we're going to talk about that. So the three, just so people understand what these three categories are, just to recap, so you don't have to watch the video, but I advise you do. The core base basket inside your portfolio holds covered call ETFs that are very stable in NAV. They have very stable monthly distributions. They're very diversified in their underlying exposure, and they don't generally have yields that exceed 30%. Most of them are in the 10 to 20% range. Some might actually creep into the 20 to 30% range, but core base covered call ETFs in your basket for your portfolio would meet that criteria. And again, keep your mind on that one because that's the one we're going to talk about the rest of the video. The other two are the yield base baskets, and that basket would actually hold those with yields, say, exceeding 30%. They're going to have more a more modest. They might use leverage a lot more. They might actually tilt a lot more into volatility. So you're going to see their NAV be much more volatile because their purpose is to try to push the envelope a little more with cover call ETFs in order to generate more yield than the core base. And those, for example, would be ones that you're going to potentially see some NAV lag, I'm going to say. And there's a definition between NAV lag and NAV erosion. NAV lag, because of their pushing of the options contract. But the good part about yield base is that they generally use underlyings that are more broad spectrum, either index based, sector based, or composite based, or all in one based. They don't hold single. A yield juicer is at the very top. These are used sparingly in your portfolio, but you're using them to exactly what I'm saying. You're using it to juice up your monthly distributions. They are very aggressive. They use niche strategies and thematic ETFs. They'll do everything they can to actually focus on income generation. They should be used sparingly because they actually are ones that are more susceptible to NAV erosion. And again, NAV erosion, no one wants to see it, but it is the consequence of trying to generate a lot more yield and a lot more income. And so you have to use strategies like reinvestment strategies in order to compensate for that. So those are the three categories. Now, it's important to have all three, or it's not important to have all three. If you're one that wants a yield that goes beyond that conservative income strategy, in other words, you want to have a portfolio yield that maybe exceeds 25, 30, 35%, you're going to have a blending of of all of these. So the core, the yield base, and you might even have some yield juicers, or you just have a larger mixture of yield base versus core. But at the end of the day, every income investor, it doesn't matter, in my opinion, if you're a conservative income investor or if you're an aggressive income investor trying to get 30, 40, 50% portfolio yield. Everybody should have in their portfolio a core base. And that's why the Americans that are asking me, my subscribers are asking me, okay, Perry, you're telling me I need to have it. What is it that I should have? Now, in Canada, and I'm going to go into my video over here. Let me switch over to it. From that video that I showed you a few days ago, this chart is important. So I want to identify, again, look at the green boxes. So the core base. In Canada, we have a very wide variety of the core base category or basket. We have sector-based, we have thematic, we have, so for example, we have ENCL, which focuses on the Canadian energy sector. We have them in the banking and insurance sector. We have all over the place. We have them on bonds. We have them on Canadian large caps. So we have a whole bunch of them that are actually focusing on a wide variety of sectors and indexes and different types of thematic concepts. The other thing that's really nice about it, like we have areas like utilities and several of the various sectors out there, not just the ones that, like, there's a few that I don't even have that I should actually have, like mining and, like I said, I just mentioned that other one. The utilities sector. So I should have them, but they are in here. The other thing that's really nice in the Canadian sector and the Canadian market for the core base is not only do we have several sectors that we can blend all in, they're all, again, they meet the category of core base because they're all under 30%. Matter of fact, many of them are in the under 20%, some are in the 12% range, but they've all shown very stable NAV. A matter of fact, even growing NAV, if you look at something like HDIV as an example, you'll see that not only does it give you a nice, stable yield, a modest yield, but it also shows you a consistent growing NAV. So that's why this is important to have in your portfolio. The other thing that they do in Canada, which is not yet available in America, I think it's just starting to emerge, I believe, and I haven't seen it because I actually went to their website today. I think Tap Alpha might be starting to consider it. But in the Canadian market space, the use of modest leverage, even in these core base cover call ETFs, is very pronounced. Like it's used all over the place, and it's very critical because it basically mitigates that NAV lag that cover call ETFs have over top of the ones that are their underlyings. It really does basically bring you back to ground zero having them. It's something that I think the American landscape is starting to look at. They definitely use leverage on much of their called the yield juicers, like the 2 times, the 3 times, but they're not using them yet in any of the list of the, let's call it the boring core base ETFs, and we're going to go through them here. But so far, I haven't seen one. I don't have an exhausted list, but I'm going to tell you the ones I've seen so far, I have not seen it. If you search in the Canadian cover call market for core base cover call ETFs, they're everywhere. It's almost like the Canadian market all agrees that modest leverage is something you have to have. It's safe. It's safe for a base core, and so it's used. And I think the American marketplace is just starting to understand that it's something they should have too. Okay, so that's the list, everything in green. So the American subscribers, my American subscribers, and other international as well. But my American subscribers have been asking me, Perry, find me American equivalents to all these green boxes. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this list here. And again, this is definitely not exhaustive, but I'm going to bring it up here. All right. I started creating a list this week. And we're going to go through some of them that I've found. Again, it's definitely not an exhaustive list. I actually my plan is to have this spreadsheet grow. So right now, this is 1 week of work. I've looked at the options of which might fall under the category, and I already explained to you what my category criteria is for core base. These are the ones that I found that were actually meeting that criteria. It was interesting, the list, but I'm going to actually ask several other of my followers, my subscribers, to please pass comments down to me in this video, because if somebody says, Perry, you forgot about XYZ, and they've got a good one that fits all your criteria, please tell me what it is. I'm going to investigate them a little further, do a little bit more research, and I want to add it to this list. I'm going to be putting this spreadsheet and maintaining this spreadsheet in my Google Drive for my members only. So if you are an actual member, a pillar member of my channel, you'll be able to see this list grow on a monthly basis or a weekly basis. When I see something new, I'm going to add it to this list. Maybe once on a quarter, or maybe every 6 months, I might actually do another video to do an update to show what this list is changed into. But if you are a pillar member, you'll be able to see this spreadsheet and look at it on a daily basis. So that's sort of a little bit of a perk of being a pillar member of my channel. All right, so here's some of the research that I've done so far. And again, I want to clarify here, absolutely clarify. I am not recommending any of these to say I would put these in my portfolio. I have not done enough research on them to say that they belong in my basket. But I'm telling you, these are ones that sound very promising. And if you are an American and you are looking at filling your basket, I would seriously look at these as being good options. Some of them I would turn around and say, if I were an American, I would actually invest in them. But I don't want to turn around and say that with any commitment, because until it's actually in my portfolio strategy as joining my catalog, I don't have a commitment level of saying I buy these. Okay, but keep that in mind. One thing I do want to point out, and I should say it right now, it's like, Perry, why would you not add any of these American ETFs as core base? If they are really good enough that you say they're qualified, why would you not look at them? And the answer is actually quite simple. Because the Canadian landscape is so filled with really good, mature, leveraged sector and thematic type cover call ETFs, as a Canadian, there is no benefit for me to actually buy any of these American versions of core base cover call ETFs, because their yield percentages are low enough that when you add another 15% withholding tax, because as a Canadian, the income coming from any American cover call ETF is hit with a 15% withholding tax. So they don't have enough yield that basically if you take another 15% off of them, then they don't compete against the Canadian ones that I have available to me without a withholding tax. And in all honesty, most of them are actually more mature or as mature, but I'll actually say more mature than any of these on this list here. So again, there's no benefit for me as a Canadian to actually look at any of these. Maybe there are Canadians that do buy into them. I'm not sure why you would, because there's just so many great options that I've seen in Canada that basically there's nothing really here that stands out, in my opinion, that I would say I'm willing to take a 15% withholding tax hit just to have this American base core. Now, obviously, you've seen my portfolio. I have a lot of, I'll call it yield base or yield juicer cover call ETFs from the United States. And the reason I do is because when you've got a 50% yield or a 45% yield, even if you take 15% withholding tax off it, they still are better than most of the Canadian options that are available. So it's interesting. Canada actually is more mature on the core base landscape of cover call ETFs. But if you really are a Canadian and you want to have access to the yield base and more so the yield juicers, there's really not much of anything on the table in Canada. So I can take advantage of going into the American market and actually tapping into those. And again, even with the 15% withholding tax, it's well worth it. Like if I got 50%, take my 15% off that 50% yield, I'm still getting 43% yield. So it's well worth it, because there's almost nothing on the table on the Canadian side that can match that. And that's why we sort of have the benefit of both worlds as a Canadian, because we get to do that. And the other thing is we've also got almost a 40% exchange rate benefit as well, because you add that to it as well. So, all right. So, sorry, I talked too much. So let's go through them. So the first list I put down right here is from NEOS. You can see there's several from NEOS. I'm going to turn around and say, when I looked at this entire list, if there was one company that's emerging in the American marketplace that would be I'm going to call it the king of the core base cover call ETF basket, I'd say it's NEOS. Like the research I did on it, they looked really good. They had SPY-I, they had QQQI, they had IWMI, they had emerging market one, and they actually had a Bitcoin one. All of them are they're sort of mature in the sense that the oldest one they have is SPY-I. Inception was August 2022, but most of them are relatively new. And again, it's because the American market landscape for core base cover call ETFs is new. It's not as mature as the Canadian one. So you're going to see most of them here are only less than a year old, or maybe 2 years old at the most. So the reason I say it is that if you look at here, all the yields are well within that range here. 12, 14, 9.7. And the biggest one is Bitcoin. So the nice thing I say, even with Bitcoin being as volatile and and as a sector to tie into. The fact that they only are doing a yield of 28% means that they are actually really putting a lot of focus on growth and income. So again, that is a key criteria for an ETF that falls into that core base basket. So I'm going to turn around and say there's three categories: erosion, lag, or stable. If it's erosion, it means that they're showing signs. I looked at all the price charts on every one of them that I put on here. Not one of them I saw all the way down the list showed any sign of erosion. Now, don't get NAV lag or don't get NAV decline mixed up with NAV erosion. NAV decline means that the underlying has gone down and the ETF has gone down with it, but they generally are tracking each other. If the underlying goes up in price, the ETF's price goes up with it. So don't get it mixed up with the fact that, like, for example, right now, I don't know exactly where it is right now, but NEOS's BTCI, I'm sure that its price point right now is down. But it's not down because it's eroding. It's not down because it's lagging. It's more so down because its underlyings are down, because right now the Bitcoin and crypto sector is down almost 30% or around 30%. So that is not erosion. That's not lag. It's still stable because it's following its underlying. And that's what I mean. If it's eroding, it basically shows in the chart, because if you look at the underlying's price movement and you look at the covered call ETF's price movement, you'll notice a strong divergence. You'd be seeing that the covered call ETF's price continues to go down, even though the underlying has downs, but actually goes back up. It just shows like a step ladder drop. Every time they pay a distribution, it goes down a little more and a little more and a little more. That's erosion. NAV lag is when the underlying goes up and the covered call ETF price goes up with it, but not as much. It doesn't keep up. And that's usually because of upside capping. Again, that's not erosion. That just means that it cannot keep 100% up with the price of the underlying. And there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with NAV lag, because NAV lag basically is the covered call ETF capitalizing the income and giving it to you as income. So there's nothing wrong there. NAV stability or NAV stable, it means basically that it's not even showing lag. And again, a lot of them do this in the other world. In the Canadian markets, they do it because they actually have leverage that helps keep it stable. But if you really put a lot of focus on growth and do your covered call strategies in the right way, you could pretty much eliminate all lag, because you're basically giving such a wide out of the money strategy, which again impacts yield. You will see yields drop dramatically when you see that. So that's why they're only getting like 12, 14% yield, because their covered call option strategies are conservative enough that they don't really get hit with any form of upside capping. All right. Not every time, but generally. I'm saying if it happens occasionally or rarely, it's still considered stable. If it's happening on a regular basis, I'm still calling it lag. But anyways, that's where we are here. So what I've done here is I see that the NEOS as a company, I even watched one of the videos from one of the influencers. It's pretty clear that NEOS is really taking a leadership role, in my opinion. I'm not sponsored by any of these guys, so please, if you think I'm trying to promote these guys, I'm not. I have no sponsorship with any ETF manager, just so people know. But from what I'm getting, NEOS really seems like they're taking an American leadership role on wanting to be that ETF manager that offers you that core base basket of covered call ETFs. That's the way I can see it. If you are an American, they would definitely be a target for you guys to look at as being in your core base. If I had to pick, I put here, by the way, what their general initial price point is. So just for people's information, generally they run their price at around the $50 range. When I guess during inception, they'll do it around $50. And then it varies from there. So it can go to 57 or 48, but 50 is the initial price point, is where they start off at. They all pay monthly. They don't pay weekly. I looked at their distribution volatility. So I opened it up and said, some of them didn't matter because they were too young. Like, for example, this one here, it's just October 25, so it's only like a month old. But I have a strong suspicion that it will have high volatility only because it's focusing on the crypto market. In here, I noticed some moderate, and in this case, moderate to low distribution volatility. And when I'm talking about volatility of distributions, I mean that every month the distribution number, the raw number, is a little bit different. So if it's going from 28 cents to 27 cents to 28 cents to 29 to 20, that's to me to be very low. That would be a low distribution. If it's something like it's 28 and then it's 52 and then it's down to 30 and that to me is moving into moderate to high type of range. So I just wanted to give people a flavor of what kind of volatility I saw when I was looking at these. So in summary, these are the 5 that I thought were good candidates if I were an American that I would maybe seriously consider putting these guys in my basket. All right. The next group that I saw, and I have a feeling this company is going to be emerging a lot faster. They'll be the next NEOS, in my opinion. They seem to have, and I watched a whole video on them as well. I was inspired with the idea that what they were talking about were focusing on, again, that concept of trying to be a mixture of growth and income, to be modest. So that would be TAP Alpha. They only have 2 ETFs from what I saw. Like I've looked, I'm going, is this it? They're pretty new. Their first one was TSPY, very popular from what I've seen people talk about it in my eco space of high yield income investing. It's over a year old. Both of them started with inception prices of around $25. The T-Day just started about 2 months ago from what I saw. Their yields easily fall within that range of a base core cover call ETF, 14 to 17%. They both showed a stable NAV. In other words, they did follow the underlying pretty closely. Again, I'm not going to look at all the underlyings. If you're very interested in any of these, NEOS, TAP Alpha, all of them, I'm just giving you a general description. This is basically following the S&P. And this one, I think, is following, obviously, the NASDAQ, but I don't know if it includes the entire index or if they're picking and making it more of a thematic or a sector type of base or, hand picking. But the theme is, one is S&P, and it sounds like this one's NASDAQ. I've heard rumors through the Blossom community and that they are looking at adding. They might be one of the first ones to actually add leverage into it. Maybe they already have, but when I looked on their website, I saw only these 2. I did not see leveraged versions of these, but these, I've heard rumors that they may be the first ones to actually introduce a leveraged version of it. I'm really hoping that for my American subscribers, that these ETFs all start looking at adding a modest 25% leverage. It literally is a game changer. It takes that lag out of these cover call ETFs, if there is any lag, and makes them back to being on par to their underlying, in my opinion. So these guys are looking really good. I'd say NEOS and TAP Alpha both look like they're the managers that are trying to take on this space and say we are the go-to for this kind of market space. Stable. Distribution cycle, from what I noticed, is monthly, and their volatility is low. Like both of them. Now, this one has only been around for a thing, but this one here has been around for over a year, and it showed very low or a low distribution volatility from month to month. Okay, I moved down. I said, what else is available? And I hunted down and I found Invesco. Well, they are like, if I remember correctly, Invesco is basically the owner of the indexes like QQQ, but they also have a whole bunch of other cover call ETFs. This one here is, it actually has basically an emotional thing, because this one here, PBP from Invesco, this one is, in my opinion, the first cover call ETF that ever joined the market. If you look at it, its inception was July of 2008. And I believe this is the one that basically started. Now, nobody followed in their footprints until Canada did with BMO starting to introduce cover call ETFs. But generally, Invesco created this one back in 2008, and it's still running. It's got a nice, modest 12% yield. It has a stable NAV. It pays monthly, and it has a moderate distribution volatility. So I noticed that it does go up and down quite a bit. But I mean, if you want something that has gone through, it's gone through the 2008, it's gone through the pandemic, it's gone through a lot of the corrections in all these years, and here it is still living. So if you want something that basically has proven that it sticks around, this one's the one here. And you know what? Honestly, at a 12% yield, that's not bad at all. They also had another one called an Income Advantage cover call ETF called QQA. Again, do your investigations on this one. They released it in July of last year. They're using now a 50% initial price point. And I brought that up because some of them, they used to all start at $10, $15, $20, $25. But a lot of them do bring it up to 50, so there's more wiggle room. You know, for example, if you talk about yield max, they are now focusing on a $50 initial price for any new ETFs, as well as when they now do reverse splits, they're moving it to a $50 range. So this is one that's started in the $50 range, just to give you guys an idea of the general price of these things. It has a 10.3% yield, stable monthly, and in what I saw, it generally shows a low distribution. And then another one that was in here was another what they refer to as an income advantage. It's called RSPA. You might want to look at that one. The next one is from Defiance. Now, if you've been in the cover call ETF landscape community for a long time, you would turn around and say, oh my God, Perry, you're putting Defiance in here. They were the kings of NAV erosion with QQQY and IWMY and all of those. Why would they be in here? I think after their last reverse split and stuff like that, they really started learning their lesson that we need to give the client something more stable, something that really focuses on avoiding NAV erosion. And they put out these target ETFs. So they're target yielded ones. So SPYT and QQQT are both income ETFs with a target. And it's a 20% target that they put on it. They've been around for over a year. The initial inception price was in the $20 range. So you're looking at an ETF that floats in that $20 range. They actually do have very good yields, 20% each, 20, 21. They do lag. So I noticed from when I was watching it, there was some lag in here. And again, not surprising if they're heading into the 20% range. They pay only a monthly cycle. And I noticed that their volatility distribution is very low. And the reason it's very low is because they're setting a target yield. So because they're doing a target 20% yield, they know that they're going to do everything they can to, likely they're earning more than the 20%. So they might be doing things like holding an internal cash account or something. But whatever they're doing, I noticed from the distributions, they were very low distribution volatility. So again, you might give them a chance, even though they've had a bad reputation of being some of the kings of along with yield max of NAV eroders, but these don't show that they're showing any NAV erosion from what I saw. Again, early prospectus, someone might have to do a lot more research on them, but from what I did my research on them this week, it looks like they are definitely learned their lesson with regards to dealing with NAV. Another one, which again is its counterpart as known to be the reputation of kings of NAV erosion, is the yield max community or the yield max ETFs, but they have released 3 of them in here that are actually going literally the counterpart of being yield max. They did what's called these target 12s is what I've read. There's 3 of them that I seen that I thought would be interesting. One is Biggie, one is RNTY, which is the real estate option income, which is interesting because when you talk about a thematic sector, the American community, the American landscape has very few thematics. This is one that I saw that had a thematic of the real estate. And then the other one was Soxy, another thematic that they focused on the semiconductor option. Their yield, of course, because it's called Target 12, their yield is 12%. Again, they focus on a $50 initial price. Two of them are actually almost a year old. This one is a year old. This is almost a year old, and this one was this spring. So these three are relatively new. I noticed that their stability, their NAV has been quite stable from what I've seen, and they pay on a monthly basis, not a weekly basis. And the other thing is that they have low to very low distribution. So that, or distribution volatility. Apologies for the phone ringing. You're going to have to listen to it go into an off hook here. All right. So that's the one you want to consider. Again, hard to look at these guys when they are known for NAV erosion, but because they're focused here really on 12% target yield, these are actually good ones to consider. I put this one in here because I don't like personally a cover call ETF that generates less than 10%. Now, if you want something that is very stable, JP Morgan's JEPI is one of the behemoths of cover call ETFs. Very large. I don't even know. I think they may not be cover calls. They may be notes or something. Anyways, derivative based. So JEPI is a behemoth in the marketplace. If you want something to have very conservative yield, this is the one. Again, I don't even know how large it is, but it's large. It's been around since June of 2020. It started with a $50 price. It only has a yield of 7.2%. Again, that's good if you are a dividend investor. You say, well, 7.2, that's better than any company offers generally. So if you're the kind of income investor that really wants real conservative type of yield and stability, you can't go wrong having JP Morgan's JEPI. I'm at a point where if you're at the 7% range, then why are you not just investing in dividend stocks? Because it's almost there. Again, I shouldn't say that because honestly, I think these would have a better, more stable yield than a lot of dividend stocks do. But anyways, it's something to consider. Its volatility on distributions is very low as well. But can't hurt to have it if you really are one that wants to go really into conservative income investing and want that 7% amongst some of these other ones. These two here are from a company called Fundstrat. They're actually referred to as granny shots. And I thought they were an interesting name. Why are they called granny shots? And literally they actually are using the analogy of when you have a basketball and you're trying to throw a basketball into the net. They call it granny shots, where you cheat. You sort of put your hands on the ball and fling it from under between your legs. That's why they call it granny shots, because they're saying we're sort of taking a very conservative, very thematic approach on this. So they just got released. They're 2025. They just got released this month. I just learned about them. I actually talked about them in a couple of my videos. I don't know anything more about them. They're so new that their yield, it shows no sign of a yield. I don't know if they're stable. I am not too sure if they're monthly. I assume they're going to be monthly. And because they have had no distributions released, I can't even tell you what the distribution volatility is. But I've done some reading on these ones. Their whole concept is to be really growth with some income focus. And when they call it granny shots, where they're basically saying we're going to do a very like a cheating type of ways, like of trying to maintain an incomes with stable NAB. Keep your eyes on this one. I wouldn't invest in these yet, at least until you at least see what a month worth of these are. Maybe more stuff is going to come out of them. I don't know where they come from. There was only one other ETF they had. I didn't even put it on a list. It's, I think, a year old. But these are the two income ones. One is going to focus on U.S. large caps and one is on U.S. small and mid caps. They're not index based. I noticed that they actually have a whole strategy. If you go to their website, they have a whole strategy on which underlyings they're going to put in here. They've got a whole type of methodology on how they do it. But the whole focus, from what I understand in this one, is that they're going to focus on real stability with a moderate yield. Again, jury's out what that is. And then the last one, which I actually watched an entire 1 hour video from one of my other influencers on YouTube with one of the heads of Curve, is the Curve ones. These also, I would say, add them almost to the list of NEOS. These guys are also going to be focusing a lot on the basket of core base cover call ETFs. Their yields, I don't know this one here because this one didn't actually say anything yet. It didn't have a yield for this one, but this one was from 17, 12, and then this one, they basically, they call it, they're thematic because they're basically doing tech titans or high income. So this one more focused on the Mag 7 type cover call ETFs. From what I learned from watching the video, this KYLD is brand new. They're going to focus a lot more on the emerging tech sector. So they're more aggressive than I would say a NEOS or a TAP Alpha is going to be. But they are focused very strongly on growth with a modest yield. And as such, these are ones I would be definitely interested in. I think I would even consider this KQQQ one. But the only thing is everyone uses the Mag 7 type of thing, so it gets a little boring when you look at all of them have it. The two that I really do find interesting, but again, their yields are too small for me to consider as a Canadian. But if you're an American, I like the idea that they have a silver and a gold sector cover call ETF here. And if you're looking at a 12 or 23% yield, it really does seem like they're focusing on growth with a little bit of income on it. So that's what I'm seeing here. They're pretty new, July and September 2025, so they didn't have many distributions. The few that I did see is this one was low to moderate. This one here looks low, but unknown. So I have to, I actually spelled it wrong. It's called unknown, but it doesn't matter. All right, so that's my list. I'm really hoping people are going to turn around and send me, added recommendations for me to look at other ones that I want to put in here. But again, do your own research. So I'm showing you examples of American cover call ETFs that fit that definition or that criteria of core base ETFs. And now if you can see this, instead of asking me, Perry, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I'm really, as the teacher, going to turn it around on you and say, well, think about it. If you say this one might be a core base, then go do your research, call up the website and say, is it under 30% yield? Is it from when you looked at the price chart? Are you seeing that that the ETF is basically not showing any signs of erosion? And when, again, I've explained to you, it means that if you compare the underlying that they have with the cover call ETF price, are they staying in alignment up and down? Up and down is not a problem. Are they staying in alignment? If they're staying in complete alignment, then they basically have no NAV erosion at all. If they're declining a little bit, but it's still going up with it, then they have some NAV lag. Nothing wrong, in my opinion, with NAV lag. That's sort of a sign that they're border on the side of being a little aggressive, but they are actually capitalizing your income. And if they are showing that basically the underlying is rising, but you see that the ETF's price is declining or it's actually splitting apart, then you see NAV erosion. You would not want to pick one of these up. Definitely not as a core base. You might pick it up as a NAV juicer. But if you have a core base that's showing erosion, you've got a flawed ETF, because you should not be having that and have a yield under 20, 30%. Something's wrong with that ETF. I haven't found one that does do that. But anyways, I'm going to switch over here back to my own webcam hole here. So I hope this has helped. Again, I just want to actually sort of add a little bit more commentary before I conclude here. It's great to see that the American marketplace is growing and starting to mature and evolve for my American subscribers, because in my opinion, I've said it 1,000 times, I'll say it again, a successful high yield income-based portfolio has to have a core base of cover call ETFs in it. If it's the only thing you have in it, there's nothing wrong with that. That means you would like to have like a 15 or 20% yield, and you don't want any erosion at all. then basically, if your entire portfolio is core based, that's great. It just means you're a conservative investor. But even if you're an income growth or a yield chaser, honestly, you should always have a core base inside your portfolio. So the fact that Americans don't have that wide variety of mature cover call ETFs to fill in their base, it's sad that they haven't had it. The good news is it's growing. You can see from this list it's growing. The other good news is I have a feeling the Americans will follow the Canadian innovative space. And you're going to start seeing more and more of these core base cover call ETFs start adding a modest 25% leverage. They're going to start doing things because they see the success in the Canadian market space. They want to do that. So again, if you're, for example, a NEOS with SPY and you have only 12% yield, knowing that they can add a 25% leverage and move it up to about 15%, it's competitive. It means that more people will want to buy it. So it would shock me if the American space does not start adding leverage into theirs. And again, I heard rumors that Tap Alpha is doing it. I could be wrong, but if they aren't, they will be doing it. I think NEOS will be doing. All of them will start doing it because people will want that yield increase with the minimal risk that leverage offers you. And again, leverage doesn't add risk; it adds volatility. Remember, it's volatility when you add leverage, not risk. So, so we'll see that. The other thing I'm really hoping that the American landscape is going to have that the Canadian landscape already has, and it would be really valuable for the American investor, is if some of these companies like NEOS and, excuse me, Curve and all these guys start offering more thematic and sector-based modest cover call ETFs. Like, for example, a valuable one in Canada is the banking and insurance, like Bank and HMAX and BKCL. They are valuable cover call ETFs that most Canadian cover call ETF investors have. And they just pretty much don't even exist in the United States. Or one on utilities, or one on energy, or one on, look at the different sectors and start building those cover call ETF sector-based ETFs in the American landscape. That would be something that would say that the American landscape is maturing when it comes to the core base category of cover call ETFs. And that's about it. I know I've talked too much, as I always do. So again, I hope this is very useful to you guys. Drop your comments. If you've never subscribed to my channel, please look at my other videos. This is all I talk about is high yield income strategy investing. Please subscribe. And if you want to see this spreadsheet grow from day to day or week to week, become a Piverse Pillar member, and you have access to all my spreadsheets and my PDFs of my videos in my Google Drive for you to have access to. And until next time, stay safe, stay investing, and I will see you in the Piverse.